Welcome back to Alberta Primetime and the Vocal Point now. Why do Canadian executives disapprove of the latest Chinese takeover in the oil sands? And Albertans' weekly earnings are up, but is it real for most of us? And advice in our hot job market of how to handle the counteroffer when your boss wants you to stay. Our Monday Money panel brings in the editor of Alberta Venture magazine. Michael Ganley is here tonight. Russ Stratwa is a senior investment advisor with Canaccord Wealth Management. And Shafik Hirani, a senior director with Investors Group Calgary. Good evening, everybody.
Hi, Jennifer.
Hello.
Statistics Canada says Alberta's weekly earnings rose 6.1% in July to $1,095 a month. Michael, is it really as rosy as it sounds? Are most people getting big boosts to their paychecks, or is the data misleading? Is it just the energy sector?
No, I think it flows right down. I think that people, even our hourly wage earners, are earning $3 maybe an hour more than the Canadian average. I think we all feel financial pressure, you know, no matter how much we're making. And it's not a huge jump. I mean, it's the biggest in Canada, and it is significant. But it's not something that, I mean, we can all spend that money pretty easily, I think.
And we are, apparently. Russ, are companies getting close to that boom level where salaries, ever-increasing salaries, are maybe starting to cut into the bottom line a little bit too much? Are Albertans' big paychecks starting to perhaps affect stocks' performance?
The irony is it's been quite the opposite. Corporate health hasn't been this robust for many years, many say since the 50s, because we have a shift happening here where the defined benefit plans are sort of going the way of the dodo bird. Benefits are sort of going the way of full-time is dissipating, part-time is becoming forefront. So the true dollar cost to these companies is not as much as you might think.
Shafik, do our high weekly earnings mean that Albertans feel the rise in the price of goods as much as other Canadians? Does inflation even bother us? Do we just spend? And if so, on what?
Yeah, good question, Jennifer. And you know, if you have rising earnings by non-farm payrolls and you have low inflation, then the only thing that we really feel is a higher standard of living. So things look really good. A lot of it is oil and gas focused, so what comes could go very easily. Where it's being spent mostly is in retail and consumption, and that's good for the Alberta economy, but it does come with a cautionary tale. I mean, I remember being on here last month, Jennifer, and if you remember, the Albertans' average debt is also the highest in Canada. Mm-hmm. So we have to temper this with some cautionary note that the average Albertan, although we're making more than the average country province, we're also spending more. So we have to stick to our guns, stick to our financial plans.
Michael, Robert Half Management Resources reports that the counteroffer in our very hot job market is still a common retention tool. If people are making a lot of money, moving around, changing jobs, moving up in Alberta, what if your employer tries to keep you with a counteroffer when you're halfway out the door?
Well, I think it's a dangerous strategy. I think you always hear in business that businesses are built on trust and relationships and friendships, and I think the better plan would be to go back to your employer on your yearly review and say, you know, I think my market value is this, and I don't think I'm getting that, and try and negotiate yourself that way rather than going off to the competitor and then hoping for or fishing for a counteroffer from your employer.
Robert Half, in fact, is advising don't take it, keep going. Part of that can be because now you've got a broken promise to the prospective employer that was going to hire you away. Russ, are there rules of business that apply to this?
I'm a big fan of negotiating from a position of power, but it can be dangerous. I mean, you get into that situation like Michael alluded to. Probably expect the worst, maybe hope for the best, but that's a very difficult position to negotiate from. When you're putting somebody in a corner, you might get somebody lashing back at you, unfortunately.
And Shafik, if you're an employer, can this be a dangerous thing to try to keep someone with the counteroffer? Perhaps best to let them go.
Yeah, you know, the employers are having a tough time right now because people are jumping for more money everywhere. And as an employer, you need good, valued people to stick, and you need to enhance your retention. And sometimes offering a counteroffer is a little bit too late, a little bit too sorry for this. So, you know, it's not the best thing for the employer, it's not the best thing for the recipient, because the person's just going to say, well, you know, if you offered this, it sets a very bad relationship going forward between the employer and the employee.
Alberta's job market, always interesting. Next up, why do half of Canada's executives not support the latest Chinese oil sands takeover in our province? And a forecast for small business in Alberta, what the outlook is and why. Next. Welcome back to Alberta Primetime. A survey of Canadian executives shows only 42% support the takeover of Calgary-based oil company Nexen by Chinese state-owned CNOOC. Without any conditions, 50% would oppose it. Michael, the quarterly executive survey is by the Gandalf Group, and these results are just out today. What do you make of them?
Well, I think Prime Minister Harper and his cabinet have an interesting decision to make here. There's a real east-west divide here, too. A lot more support in the west for letting the deal go through than in the east. But I think across the board, there's three primary concerns. A, that decisions CNOOC makes are going to be made actually back in Beijing, and that Canadian companies don't get reciprocal treatment in China. And are we going to be able to enforce labor and environmental regulations on CNOOC's activities here? But I think that's up to us, that third one.
It's interesting, Russ, because there's often a public view. People hear the rhetoric and worry about China state-owned foreign takeover in our country. But then we have the business voices on who say, this deal is fine, they'll be fine. Yet now the survey saying even CEOs not comfortable with it.
Well, the market's not saying it's fine. I mean, there's a 10% share price difference from what is being offered. I mean, and it traded
to the lower?
To the lower. So somebody thinks, well, this is a done deal. I can put my money and get 10%, and some are saying it hopefully closes by November. Quite the opposite. I mean, the market's saying that this deal is not going to go through as it seemingly is presented.
Too rich.
And it might be, yeah, they're coming. My understanding of it is just such a one-sided thing when you're dealing with China. These deals are not coming through reciprocating.
Because sometimes people might think, I want to invest in a company that's ripe for a takeover. Take the money and run when the offer comes in. Can you do that? Is it that easy?
No, absolutely not. I mean, it was $17 before the announcement, and it spiked up to almost $25, and now we've got a 10% discount. So there's a 30% downside if it doesn't go through. It'll probably go back to the $17 share price. Right. And the market's thinking it's probably going to be a hybrid of this current deal.
And it's getting just it's getting more opposition in the United States in Congress. There, the assets that Nexen holds, only 25% of its assets are in Canada. The rest are spread around the world. The Gulf of Mexico is a lot of them, and there's a lot more political pressure not to allow China owning those assets.
Security issues per se.
Shafik, if you're not looking for the takeover target, how do you play it? Safe, go on the solid foundations when looking for companies to invest in Alberta?
No, Jennifer, you were right the first time. You know, I love Russ, but when you are trying to make money in the stock market, you look for the takeover target. They generally have a lower price earnings valuation. They have a lower price to book valuation, and generally there are anomalies to this efficient market hypothesis, and you can actually outperform the markets if you buy companies that generally get taken over. So you do want to look for these takeovers. The one thing I just want to quickly mention about this C-suite survey, first of all, they're surveying CEOs, and it's excellent information, and the real value goes to what's called the net benefit test, which is very vague right now. But as for whether this Nexen CNOOC deal is going through, the CEOs have no say, they have no right, maybe a little bit of Congress does, but it's the shareholders that have the view, and they voted 99% to ratify this. It looks like the deal's going through.
Let me let you respond. The looking for takeover targets, I think, Russ, comes with some risk.
Well, it goes without saying that what Shafik said is true. I mean, you do want the takeout targets because you get the instant premium, but but when you start not looking at the fundamentals of the company, and will that takeover ever come? So I mean, it kind of goes without saying.
You want to make money anyway.
Yeah, I mean, you might be. I mean, if you'd have bought Rona, I mean, you'd be in a deficit position here with them Lowe's walking from the deal here now.
Lots of things to consider. Right. Small business in Alberta, 46% are looking at expansion in our province. That's more here in the West than anywhere else in Canada. Michael, your magazine, Alberta Venture, has the October issue featuring small businesses businesses in our province. What have you found out there?
Well, they're super active. There's a lot of young entrepreneurs in this province doing things. I had a couple of really interesting interviews with young people in rural Alberta, well, not rural, small towns, Bonnyville and Lloydminster, that are doing very interesting things with tech companies there and selling online. One guy's market is the whole world now out of Lloydminster, and the other guy out of Bonnyville is at least all of Alberta. And they're terrific. They're terrific energy and opportunities there, right? These guys may be fairly young and inexperienced, but the opportunity's there, and if they work hard, they're gonna do well.
Shafik, is timing an issue? Could Alberta small business owners who are looking to expand become overextended if China slows down or the U.S. recovery falters?
Yeah, absolutely, especially if you're doing any kind of import-export. If you take a look at China, their GDP is down 20%. Now, it's still in a growth GDP, but the rate of growth is declining at 6%. So their manufacturing orders, their imports are down. So there's a lot of risk towards dealing with foreign provinces. You know, if you're a new business in Alberta, this is worrisome considering in the globe today, it's at the average expectancy of lifestyle for a new business is 5 years. Mike's Alberta Venture magazine is awesome. So I want to give a plug for him. If you are a business owner in Alberta, it really gives some great advice on building a business.
Russ, can investors seek out these little gold mines, these little cash machines, or do you need to be a friend or family, an angel investor, or wait for them to come to the venture capital market looking for you?
Two of the biggest things that private business owners encounter when they're trying to get their business going is cash flow, cash flow, cash flow, and then you get a liability potential. So I'm sure business owners would love to take our capital, but matching up those people, how do you find these people? How do you trust what's going on?
Unless you have your own dragon's den.
You bet. When you're on the outside looking in, do you trust the people running the business? What qualifications do they have? And then from the business owner standpoint, I mean, how do you get in touch with those people to get that cash? I mean, then you make the leap to public, and now you've got another whole set of securities regulations and finances and management.
Management team, venture capitalists tell me, is one of the things they look at the most. It's not just the entrepreneur. Who have you surrounded yourself with? You got an accountant, you have a human resources personnel, who do you have?
And there's new help for rural businesses in Alberta.
Oh yes, the money just came through. Sorry, Jennifer. Yes, there is. Yeah, I mean, that's some support. I don't know how far it'll go. Many of them are doing very well on their own without any support, and sometimes it's better just to go that way.
Shafik, we have just a quick minute to ask what else you're watching this week. I know we've got some national statistics coming out.
Yeah, you know, a lot of times economists, they focus on economic indicators that are lagging, like employment numbers. Well, there's some leading economic indicators that are out this week. There's the productivity measures, the ISM numbers. We're expecting a number of the manufacturing numbers, and this is a very leading economic indicator. So they're out Friday. We're expecting 50. Jobs numbers are also out on Friday. We're expecting 7.3% in Canada and 8.2% in the States, and that should be good for the political environment. Yeah.
Thank you very much, all of you, for your insight tonight. Michael Ganley is editor of Alberta Venture magazine. Russ Dratt was a senior investment advisor with Canaccord Wealth Management, and Shafik Hirani, a senior director with Investors Group Calgary.